continuing the discussion of the First Amendment and free speech and the operation and justification clause idea, for the most part, it's really tech company policy that is affecting people's access to platforms. But let me just mention that part of it is the shielding from downstream liability, the DMCA safe harbor for copyright, which of course is no longer exists. Nothing like that even exists in Europe now with the EU with the recent copyright directive, and then in the U.S. Section 230 downstreaming liability, downstream liability exclusion for most other torts, and that's at risk as we had with FOSTA, for example. But the big thing probably is the fact that tech companies have to respond to the values around the world, and free speech and other Western companies outside of the United States, especially Europe and the UK, and even Canada, Australia, so forth. They're not quite as free as we are as far as it's not quite as absolute a right. There are hate speech laws and so forth. The practical reality is tech companies also have to deal with pressure from advertisers to support them, and advertisers don't want to be associated with extreme speech or hate speech, and particularly sometimes with advertisers today are a little more sympathetic to speech from the left than from the right. And the left is, the far left is able to organize boycotts and so forth, demonstrations, will do collective action a lot more than the right will. Again, following through on a speech, being willing to protest yourself, being willing to stand, not thinking it's above you to protest like people on the right do, but being willing to be part of the crowd and be part of solidarity. That's actually a value. So the tech companies have to respond to that, and so that's why we have an issue with demonetization, deplatforming, and why they're favoring legacy, at least political speech, why they're favoring legacy corporate media more than independent contributors. And there's kind of a mood right now of discouraging people from going into speaking for themselves politically. They think that people should own businesses that support themselves, and they should limit themselves and be more local in their reach with people and work with others more, and that their speech rights should have to do with their ability to work with others, sell things to others, make others important, and so forth. It should be a social experience, not an individual experience. So that's a kind of anti-individualism. I'm very concerned with that, and I think in a couple more years we're going to see much more pressure for sites to have to prove they're actually self-supporting, that you can't just because you can afford to get on like I can now and talk for yourself without going through other people. That's what I'm afraid is coming down the road in a couple more years. Biden, by the way, wants to get rid of Section 230. I thought I'd mention that too. But that's what I have today on fundamental rights.